Hey, welcome back to a brand new episode of Mikeadelic. I'm Mike Brancatelli, you're you, and today's podcast is going to be a solo cast. Just me. Usually, I don't do ads when I have solo casts. You guys know some of the sponsors that sponsor this show: SHEATH Underwear, Ohana Kava Bar, Mushroom Revival, and Fungi Academy. Go check them out in the description, link description below. Also, today's podcast is brought to you by a new sponsor, Being True to You, a coaching company that helps people prepare and integrate psychedelic experiences, navigate addiction and recovery. They do virtual one-on-ones, group coaching. They also run a one-of-a-kind coaching, training, and certification program for people who want to build a career helping other people transform their lives in a positive, meaningful, impactful, and healthy way. Excuse me. And I think this is great because even I myself have been I want to further my education. I want to further my training. I want to develop a little bit more, but I don't want to shell out like hundreds of thousands of dollars for some PhD program or master's program, or, there's a lot of scam places out there. I've heard some things about Landmark Institutions, some other places like that charge like an exorbitant amount of money. But really, when you're looking at something like this, it's pretty straightforward. It's like, hey, if you're interested in learning more about psychedelics, or if you have family members that are suffering from addiction, or if you want to help veterans struggling with symptoms of post-traumatic stress, or whatever it is, Being True to You is pretty much the industry standard for training coaches and getting the real results that people find their way in this field of exploring with the depths of the psyche. People can find their way back to their passion and their purpose in life. So everyone who's familiar with psychedelics knows they're not like a magic pill. It's not a panacea. Integration is a key to success, and we could talk a whole lot about what that means. But the process of integration is what takes the insights and realizations from a psychedelic experience and brings them into daily life in the form of new perspectives, better habits, and more gratitude and clarity and discipline and just overall joy and positivity, right? I think that even those challenging and scary moments in psychedelic trips, there's always something to be learned. There's always something to be gained. And even like the really far out and trippy ones, it's like, man, like I was just on another planet with aliens. Like, how do I make sense of that? Right? Like, how do I make sense of that? There's a lot of people now having those experiences and that need help kind of grounding back into three-dimensional reality so that they can make and manifest their gifts in this life. And everybody deserves a chance to unlock that door where their gifts lie, and a lot of times, like Robert Bly says, wherever your wounds are is where your genius lies. And a lot of the psychedelic work is about tapping into those wounds and letting that genius out. So with psychedelics starting to, gain more traction and more popularity, again, Michael Pollan's got a new book out. I forget, what is it called? Your Mind on Plants or something. Joe Rogan's constantly having people on talking about it. Even Lex Friedman, who has a big podcast, had Rick Doblin on recently. So it's just becoming more a part of the mainstream, and people are going to need more help. And there's more opportunities now for people, you listening out there, like, hey, maybe I want to get into the psychedelic field. Me personally, I feel most comfortable being sort of a voice. My human design says that I have a sacral throat activation, so I feel it in my gut and I say it. That's sort of my role in this whole thing. But we need coaches, we need facilitators, we need therapists, we need doctors, we need scientists, we need all these people that are trained, that have psychedelic experiences, that know how to work with psychedelic experiences, know how to help people integrate. So it's more important now than ever that people understand the profound importance of proper integration. I'm really happy to be working with this company. They're a bunch of really nice people. I got on a call with them. We had a talk. Being True to You got their start a decade ago, 10 years ago, providing before and after care to people undergoing ibogaine treatment for opiate addiction. And over the years, they expanded to support people working with ayahuasca, ketamine, 5-MeO, DMT, psilocybin, and a lot of other entheogens. They also help people who are dealing with addiction or other major challenges in their life who are not doing psychedelics as part of their process. So coaching is really a wonderful way to help people because it's flexible, it's confidential, it's based entirely on the needs, wants, and goals of the individual. And, it's different than therapy, right? I mean, sometimes you go in an office, you have some stuffy therapist who, is just going to kind of explain things away to their, understanding of psychology that they kind of master in, whether it's like CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy, or whether it's like Jungian therapy or whatever their context is, whatever their framework is. I feel like sometimes a coach is somebody who's kind of more in it with you. Like they're going through the process as well. They're invested. They're kind of more down to earth and real. Not always the case, but this can be the case in my experience. So Being True to You has also been doing a lot of work with veterans and first responders, and more vets are seeking out effective solutions for PTSD, and psychedelic treatments are gaining just like a really, really powerful reputation in that community for working where prescription drugs, as we know, have failed and just created a whole host of more problems, right? Like the prescription drug model is kind of this broken window fallacy almost. Like we just keep putting this Band-Aids on bullet wounds, and then there's side effects to, you're depressed? Oh, take a little Zoloft. Oh, then there's a side effect. Oh, you got a headache? Oh, take a little bit of this, take a little bit of that. We all know somebody who's got like just a litany of prescription pills in their cabinets or whatever, mirror, bathroom thing. I don't know, what is that thing called? Bathroom cabinet. So anyway, I'm happy to have these guys on board because I think what they're doing is really cool, and they can really help people who want to further their education. Their Being True to You coaching training program, it starts on September 8th, and they have a limited amount of seats that they're doing. So go to beingtruetoyou.com, sign up today, say you heard it from Mikeadelic, and this course is an in-depth journey into the nature of addiction and the healing power of psychedelic substances and the process of sitting with people and being with people, coaching people through transformational work. The Being True to You training is really powerful. It doesn't only change lives of those people that you're trying to help, but it's actually helping you, like and how you experience the world. So it gives you the tools that you need to transform your own life and the lives of others around you. And the course includes 100 hours of instruction and over 800 pages of learning material. Classes are held on Zoom, and they include lectures and group discussions. And the course is taught by Being True to You's founder, Deanne Adamson, who has a master's degree in counseling. And it's also co-hosted by Dr. Dan Engel, a neuroscientist and renowned psychedelic expert. Funny enough, I almost went to work with Dr. Dan Engel. I'm familiar with hearing him on from Aubrey Marcus's podcast. I believe he ran a treatment center working with ibogaine primarily in called Crossroads, and I was really interested in going there. And a friend of mine was like, I don't know, man. If you're not really suffering from like an extreme addiction, I would maybe consider not going there. So I wound up actually going to Peru to drink ayahuasca. But I've heard a lot of great things about Dr. Dan Engel, and like I said, he's a neuroscientist and renowned psychedelic expert. And the course is designed for people who want to build a career in this new psychedelic renaissance as an integration coach, and for professional therapists and counselors and facilitators or social workers who just want to deepen their understanding of addiction, self-actualization, and psychedelic work. So if you want to learn more about what they have to offer, go to beingtruetoyou.com, check out their coaching, their upcoming coach training program, and just some quick things. Sometimes, just to clarify a little bit, They don't provide any psychedelic substances. They're not, they're not referring anyone to psychedelic centers. They coach people who have chosen on their own to do psychedelic work. And their coaching is all about harm reduction and reaching goals and listening to personal stories for lasting personal transformation. So their coaching training program is the thing here to check out. And it's starting on September 8th. And mention that you heard it here. And go poke around on their website, email them, ask questions. They're very responsive. And I believe that they're providing a really much needed service for people that want to get a little bit something more out of what's happening right now in the world. All right, so that was a very long ad, but I felt like it was necessary to talk about who these people are and why they're on Mikeadelic. Why are you guys listening to me talk about the importance of psychedelic integration and them, all this kind of stuff? And it's because I really want to get you comfortable with like who is paying to support this show and why. And like I said, like I feel the values are aligned, and I feel that that's a really interesting thing that can benefit a lot of people. So this will just be the longest ad that you've heard from me for these guys on the show as the first one. So if you listen to it, if you're interested in it, like go check out the link in the show description. And then the next couple times you'll just hear me kind of briefly mention and talk about them. But as a new sponsor, I always like to bring as much as I possibly can as to why this sponsor is on the show, what they're offering, and how it can benefit you, the listener, as much as possible, or maybe people you know. So sometimes I even have the people from the company who are sponsoring to come on and do a whole episode. So maybe we'll even do that. We did that with Bobby, Robert Patton, the founder of SHEATH. We did it for a couple other people, Jasper of Fungi Academy. So I'm interested in that as well. If it aligns, if it fits, and that's all I'll say about that. Go to the show notes, the show description, check it out, and if it rings true to you, if you feel like being true to you is being true to you, then be true to you and sign up for their coaching program at beingtruetoyou.com. Okay. Thank you for listening to that. Like I said, shorter in the future. And today we're going to get into a little solo jam as to what's going on in the world today. So I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but I've been finding it really, really difficult to have any sort of understanding of what is happening. Like how do I gain a solid grasp of sense making in this current incarnation of reality? And there's certain frameworks or conceptual frameworks or modalities or philosophies that I sort of anchor in from time to time. But I'm also conscious of not attaching to one anchor point or another for too long and trying to sort of disrupt that anchor point with, other disparate ideas and kind of like steel manning those disparate ideas against the ideas that I'm holding. And it could be very cognitively difficult and challenging and overwhelming sometimes to feel like holding all of that, and sometimes like, I guess recently I've been feeling sort of untethered and ungrounded and just confused, and mainly about what's happening in the world as regards to the big P-demic. I don't even know if we could say it because I think they check podcasts now with all the censorship and things, which is absurd, by the way. So I recently was on Instagram and I was trying to look up. So my brother's ex-wife got the jab months ago, and her arm got all fucked up. and I had to go like for more appointments to, see about like the mobility of her arm. It was like kind of cramping up. Like her arm was like pretty fucked up for a while. And I think she's better now, but I actually have to check in with her. I'm not totally sure. But they have this database. The government has a database called, for short, it's called VAERS. And it's called, it's the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. So if you have an adverse event due to a vaccine, you can report an incident. You can report what that event is, what your situation is. And so I was talking about that on Instagram, and I was tagging things, and it was like censoring the tags for this VAERS.gov website. I mean, it's a government website. It's like a CDC, FDA, like approved site here. It's very strange. So, I was like talking about something, and then I tagged VAERS, and then I couldn't see any. There were no tag came up. Like sometimes it like auto fills to a tag. No tag came up. No recent. No top. It was really weird. And then then after a while, something appeared that said, like, for more information about COVID-19 and all this stuff, like go to the cdc.gov. And it was like blocking what I was trying to share and post. And all that I was trying to share and post is that, like, hey, it's weird that you can't access VAERS information on Instagram. Like, what's going on with this? And so there's so many questions and concerns around this whole fucking thing. And I'm not. I always try and look at like what is not being said, and what is being said, and by who, and who stands the most to gain, and who stands the most to lose, and what is being covered up and why. What are the incentives? What is the purpose? What's the meaning here, right? And it's kind of a shame, but it's also brilliant and genius in a way that, like, the misinformation epidemic is tarnished with like QAnon conspiracy, flat earther, lizard people, Bill Gates, microchip control, neuro implant, brain program thing. It's like as soon as you start asking questions, people, the conditioning that we've been experiencing is that, like, oh, okay, anybody that's not like for this, or anybody that's like skeptical or asking questions, well, they must be some like right-wing tinfoil hat conspiracy crazy nutcase. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of room for nuance, especially on social media. But there are questions and there are concerns, and it's how do we know, right? And I think that, like, for me, I just try and go with a few different things to understand. But one of the main things that I understand is that these people are not on our sides. Like, these institutions, these non-human entities that answer to boards of directors and are incentivized in perverse ways by profit over people, are not on our side. And the divide and conquer tactic is the best way to rule over groups of people. That's just simply the fact. I mean, that's been the story of history for all time. We'd like to think that we've reached some kind of like apotheosis of ideological human achievement, where we've moved past a dominance hierarchy and perverse incentive systems and resource extraction and oppression models into some like neoliberal, democratic, cosmopolitan, trendy, cool, like hip understanding of things. But it's just not that way. I mean, that's the way that it's sort of like presented by legacy establishments and corporate press agenda setting places that try and present things in a way that's like, hey, we're the official sources. Trust us. And, don't listen to those other people on the internet. Oh, where did you get your information from? The internet? What is this, 1998? It's not like a punchline for incompetence anymore. Like, the internet is an amazing, psychedelic, transformative thing that is connecting people all around the worlds of disparate ideas and religions and philosophies and spiritualities and all kinds of different systems of belief and things to converge and come together. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy shit out there, but there's also a lot of amazing things out there. And you have to be able to discern what is good and what is bad. And it's not easy, right? And then so what we do is because people, they use they use the internet as like a scapegoat for people that are like, oh well, people can't be trusted because they go on the internet and they get wacky ideas. So again, it's like this nanny state solution that we need to censor and restrict things because it's for their own good. People don't know. And so these big tech companies have now become the arbiters of truth, the sole arbiters of truth, right? And if anybody's seen the Loki Disney Plus show, it's incredible, by the way. It's the theme of the show is that Loki gets the Tesseract from when the Avengers go back in time for Avengers Endgame, and he transports to somewhere else. And all of a sudden, these people come out of this like dimensional doorway, and they say that he's a variant that has disrupted the sacred timeline. So what they do is they prune variants. They terminate variants who go off of the sacred timeline. And that's like kind of what's happening here is we have this authoritarian control system that is based upon perverse incentive structures that look at mass numbers of people over the individual actual human experience of being a human being in the world, and there are these non-human entities that march to the beat of profits over people. And they're like, hey, this is bad for our incentive structure to profit us and to have more power and wealth and control. So let's prune this variant from the timeline so that we could preserve our sole arbiter of truth sacred timeline. This is the way that reality is. We tell you what the borders and the boundaries are. We tell you what is allowable and permissible in terms of thought, feelings, expressions, and emotions, and speech. If you deviate from that, then you're determined to be like a radical. You're determined to be not in accordance or alignment with the like a healthy and sane system, which is what the non-human entities of corporations and banks and pharmaceutical companies and governments have a vested interest in preserving. They have a vested interest in preserving their narrative of perpetual progress, their narrative of what they deem to be the sacred timeline, and they will do anything at all costs to preserve the sacred timeline, their sacred time, according to what they deem to be important. So when I look at things like this, it's tricky because when I talk about them, and especially on social media, there's a lack of really diving deep into the nitty gritty of the nuance of it all, and so yeah, I just think that for what going back to what I was talking about dividing and conquering, I think that is just sometimes it is as simple as that. If us, the people, the normal average people, average citizens, the average American citizen, let's just say for context, this is what I'm talking about. The average American citizen is when they are infected with the disease of believing that other average American citizens are the enemy, that's a win for the power elites, let's call them. That's actually what C. Wright Mills called them in his 1956 book, The Power Elite. So the power elite, the elites that hold power, right? And just to clarify, what I mean by that is the people that are attracted to positions of power in our world and in America, we'll say, the people that are attracted to positions of power in America, where they are rewarded for the more profit and power and the more that they play according to the sacred timeline rules. So it serves their interest to basically, distract away from what they're doing and get people to, turn on each other, the average American citizen to turn on each other and say, well, the problem here is, these Trump supporting people. The problem is these people, the misinformation, they're getting things on the internet. The problem is the QAnon people. The problem is this Antifa thing, whatever it is. When we're not really looking at what is shaping and causing all of these things, where is it really truly stemming from? We the average American citizens have more in common with each other than anybody in the power than the power elite. Like, we have nothing in common with them, and so we shouldn't be looking to them as like friends or looking to them as like people, organizations and institutions that are looking out for us or care about our well-being. It's really our family, our friends, our community, and our neighbors, which have really been evaporated. There's no sort of like mid-tier structure to allow for people to come together to make decisions, in a more community-centric way, whether it's like churches or religious institutions or like civic societies or clubs or co-ops or places like that. Those are really sort of a better way to get together with like-minded, like-hearted people and start to make decisions that are going to be in the interest of the group for the best, and then try and express that interest on a local level, right? I mean, when we talk about it's like Dunbar's number, you can't really have a civilization like the one that we have. It just doesn't work. We have to be in smaller groups of like 150 people, in that kind of range where we can really care about other people. We could really see other people and feel other people, and the actions that we take, we know will directly affect the other people in that group, because they're not anonymous. They're not random anonymous strangers. They're people that we know and live with and care about. And so, it's really this infrastructural problem, this maybe like aesthetic problem, architectural problem. It's the infrastructure of how our society is constructed and organized. I mean, you think about it, it's like everybody's in their own little box. Everybody gets a little house. It's their own little box on a street. And you don't really know your neighbors. You don't really know the people that you're there with. You don't know if you have common interests or not. And there's nothing wrong with there's benefits to being in a situation where there's like a whole bunch of diversity. And there's also benefits to being in a place where everybody's kind of on the same page, ideologically speaking, as well. So we have more in common. The average American citizen has more in common with each other than the power elite, and we have anything in common with these power elites. And Heineken, I think, did a good example of this with a commercial years ago, where they had a Republican and a Democrat come together, and they didn't tell them, they didn't say, hey, we're going to have you meet a Republican. They just had two people show up at a bar and have a beer, and then they started talking, and then they revealed like, oh, did you know that he was a Republican? Did you know that he was a Democrat? And then they're like, oh no, that's crazy, like whatever. But they found something to talk about over a beer. And that was one of the things I always loved about Anthony Bourdain, is his travel show was really more than a travel show. It was a cultural experiment show. It was going to another culture, going to another location, and accepting and inserting yourself in the cultural values, morals, and ways of the people there, and sharing in that experience, and learning who these people are and how they think and what is important to them, and just getting that direct felt sense of what it's like to be them in that place for a brief period of time by sharing a meal, by just being there. So yeah, I think that we would maybe rather fight each other and blame each other, not necessarily because we're neurologically hijacked by propaganda and indoctrination especially from an early age with compulsory schooling, but more so than that, it's also that like the other is a common and known enemy in a way. It's like, oh, well, it's easy. It's just easy for me to say, well, you know what the problem is in this country? It's those Republicans, those damn Republicans, or, those people that just, they don't care about the fact that there's like a virus and that we all have to come together and do the thing that's best for everybody. All they care about is my freedom, and it's like, yeah, it probably feels empowering to say that because you feel like you've landed on a stable, logical ground that is easily comprehensible. It makes sense to you. You understand it. You can, I know someone like that, and this person's not such a great person to be around. And so it's easy to understand. It's a known enemy. It's a known place holder where we could project our fears and our insecurities on and say, look at what these people are doing. If these people weren't doing that, then it would be better. But these people are doing that. And so we have to call them out. We have to shame them. We have to censor them, whatever it is. And that's I think it feels better. It's more comfortable. It's more acceptable to us than the big scary unknown. To a lot of people do not share in a lot of the things that we share listening to this show, or the things that I've espoused on this show, the things that I believe in, which is that that predominantly, let's say government, for example, government predominantly functions in the same way in which a mafia system functions. They provide protection for a cost, and that cost is taxation, which you don't really have a choice. We don't really know where the money goes. They don't tell us. We do know that money is spent on all kinds of things, like massive amounts of war and destruction and weapons and things like this. But, the point has been made, well, we can't get, good education, or we can't feed the homeless, or we can't clothe people, or give people houses, or give people healthcare, but we could drop bombs and spend $785 billion a year on quote unquote defense, that Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us of in 1961 in his departing statement, like, beware of the military industrial complex, people. Like, don't let this thing take over. We're far gone from that. It owns this fucking place. So, but like looking at that, like starting to unravel the onion, starting to, when there's a great scene, Slavoj Zizek talked about this. There's a great scene in the movie They Live where Rowdy Roddy Piper has a pair of magical glasses. John Carpenter's They Live. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Watch it tonight. It's fantastic. And Rowdy Roddy Piper finds these special magical glasses and he puts them on, and he's able to see the propaganda behind the ideology that is being showcased. So, he looks at he puts the glasses on and he sees the money in someone's hand, and instead of saying money on it and Federal Reserve note, it says, "This is your God." And then he sees a sign that says, like, relax, enjoy, go on vacation or something, and it says like, obey. When he puts that's where the obey propaganda I forget who created Obey as like a clothing line, but that's where Obey comes from. It comes from that movie, They Live. So he puts the glasses on and he sees, the truth behind the propaganda. He sees the hidden messages behind all of the consumerist things that are spread out in the world, all the advertisements and the posters and the magazines. And then he sees the alien people that have invaded but look like humans to regular people. But then when he puts the glasses on, he sees these like skeleton kind of alien beings who have this whole plan about coming to Earth and taking over and inserting their agendas to get people to kind of work and stay on a treadmill and produce things for them and extract resources and all this kind of stuff. And they profit off of everybody's, servitude, essentially, keeping everyone in this like hypnotized trance, right? So it's a great fucking movie. And there's a scene in the movie where Rowdy Roddy Piper tries to convince his friend to put the glasses on and see what he sees. It's Keith David, who is, I love Keith David. He's just a great actor. He does a voice of the president in Rick and Morty. So he's like, just put the glasses on. Just put these glasses on and you'll see what I see. And he's like very aggressive, Keith David. He's like, no, I won't put them on. Get away from me. I'm not going to put them on. Like I got other shit to worry about. Life's hard. I got to fucking, take care of shit. I don't have time for your bullshit. And they get into a fist fight. I think it's like one of the longest one-on-one fights in one-take one-on-one fights in movie history or something. It's like a 10-minute fist fight. And Slavoj Zizek makes the point that it's very challenging to break through ideology. That it's a disruptive. It shatters your entire framework of reality, and then you have to piece that together. So it's when standing, you feel, most people feel confident in this known world. They're not necessarily walking around with a whole bunch of questions and a whole bunch of trying to hold a whole bunch of like new cognitively complex and challenging understandings after having their standard default ideological framework smashed to fucking pieces. And I think psychedelics can do this for you. I think a lot of things can do this for you. But, in the Matrix, they call it taking the red pill, right? And the same kind of thing happens with Neo. He takes the red pill, he wakes up in the Matrix, and he refuses to accept it. And they're like, oh, he's going to pop, and he throws up. So there's this trope or this theme, this consistent thing that when all of your basic illusions have been shattered of who you are and your identity and the masks that you wear and the roles that you play in your personal life and your interpersonal relationships and in the greater context of your community and your society, when that is shattered, you have no foundation, no grounding, nowhere to stand. It's rocky waters, right? It's the tempestuous sea of liberation that is very scary, and that's why it's only really available to those who are brave and those who have courage to challenge their viewpoints, to challenge their identities, to go within, to discover new ways of seeing themselves and the world. And so this all gets back to the point of that, when the Nazis at the end of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark open the Ark, their faces fucking melt off. And Indiana Jones and what's her face close their eyes so they're not affected by it. But it's like there's something that happens that when you start to get pilled, when you take a red pill, when you start to wake up, when you expand the telescope that you're looking out of, and so you can take in more of reality so that you can see more what's under the microscope, what's out in the telescope, what is out in my environment. Can I see what's behind the messages, what's behind the meanings, what's behind, like, when you see more clearly in that way, it's rocky, it's tough, it's crazy, and most people just aren't up for it, which is why in these movies these people have like resisted participating in it. And so it's easier to just say, well, I know what the problem is. It's this, it's that, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. It's these people, it's that thing. Yeah, red bad, blue good, done. Easy. I know who I am. I know what purpose I serve, et cetera, et cetera. When the truth is infinitely complex and infinitely convoluted and infinitely mysterious. But I think that the journey isn't to land on a truth. It's not like you take a red pill, now all of a sudden you know everything, and you're like, oh, cool, now you've just landed in another ideological camp. I think the thing is just, it's a boat ride down a winding river, and you need to be able to learn, after sort of waking up, if you will, for lack of a better term, how to navigate this windy, choppy, toxic, crazy, scary, but beautiful, awe-inspiring river that just is continuous. So it's frightening for a lot of people too, to once the ideological camouflage has been lifted and people are like, oh shit, like I thought that there were benevolent or benign leaders in our world who were knowledgeable and experts and wise and really trying their best to help us and to create a better world. And they're like, oh, that was just an ideological camouflage. That was just propaganda. I've just been indoctrinated into believing that. I've just been pledging my allegiance like blindly without actually questioning or thinking about anything. And now it's like, well, now where do I go? Like, now what? Like everything is shattered to pieces. I don't know who I am. I don't know what the world is anymore. What do I do? And so that's scary and that's frightening, especially scary and frightening to think about. Like sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, like people will be like, yeah, like, our phones are listening. Of course they're listening. Like, of course. Yeah. Like we live in an omnipotent, omnipresent, technologically determined and mediated, sort of energetic prison of our own complicity, and participation. Because by participating in it and being compliant with it, we perpetuate it and it keeps going. But it's like that is the sort of like main energetic like border and boundary that is holding everything that we currently know together in sort of an easily understandable way. And it's like once you go outside of that, there's all sorts of things that happen, right? And it's like shame and ridicule and group, you're no longer like conforming to the group. So there's a sense of ostracization and loneliness and questioning, like, what am I doing? Is this right? I don't know. Why is everyone else, saying that this is the right way? And am I wrong? And, so you have to gain skills to learn how to navigate through these waters. And we're just not prepared for that whatsoever. Like most people will be terrified to learn, wait a second, you mean the world that we live in is run by like predators and pedophiles and parasites and sociopaths and psychopaths and monsters and bloodthirsty maniac assholes and people that don't have normal empathy and compassion and who don't, who are like sick and diseased because all they want to do is acquire more and more and it's never enough. It's like, yeah, that's who runs the world. That's why things are the way they are, because they set the tone for the game. They set the borders, they set the boundaries, they set the rules, they set the goalposts, and everybody follows along to those things. So to walk outside of that framework is an extremely difficult task. And it doesn't help to call people sheep. It doesn't help to call people, oh, you're sheep, you're asleep, you're not woke, you're not awake, these people are part of the problem. That's not going to help convert them. That's not going to invite them over. They've been subject to indoctrination and propaganda within their own little reality tunnel, and they've built a world that is comfortable and familiar and known and recognizable, where they feel that they have a good grasp on easily understanding things. I mean, could you imagine what would happen if we were able to just download into everybody's brain like the sort of truth of all events that have ever happened in the past 30 years? People would fucking just be foaming on the mouth on the side of the road, not able to get their lives together because they don't know who the fuck they are and what this all means, and everything's been a lie, and I don't know what the hell's happening. And so it's got to be a gradual process over time. And breaking the structures of the game is this big unknown. The dominant narratives are only dominant by means of force and coercion and really sorcery at the highest level. And like I said, these people, they claim to be the arbiters of truth. They approve, the message. They say, we're the ones who decide what is allowed to be said, felt, and experienced in this reality, or else we will punish you. You will be punished. Something will happen to you that won't be good. I mean, and I personally feel, for me, the amount of information that is out there, the amount of perspectives that we encounter on a daily basis is way too much. There's even passively, which I think a lot of social media consumption is just passive consumption of mild amusement. It's not really lighting our souls up and making us sing and dance with joy and bliss in a grand festival experience. Oh, wow. It's just this sort of passive, numbing, mild amusement. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, well, cool fact. No, I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, that's kind of funny. Ha ha ha. Oh, you know who would like that? I'll send that to them. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, maybe I'll repost that. Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. It's not this soul nourishing, fulfilling thing. And so, there's so many things that we come across when when you start your day and you get on your computer and you go through an email and you go to your Instagram or you go to Twitter, or you go to Facebook, or whatever it is that you do. You go on different websites, or you go outside, or you see advertisements and banners, or you go into a store and someone's asking you to donate $1 to help, someone get a kidney or whatever the fuck they're asking, or products and marketing and advertising and clicks and buy my thing. And everybody has an agenda that they're selling that they want you to participate in, no matter if it's come watch this movie or, come sign up for my $8,000, course that runs for 3 days. And it's, we're constantly bombarded with so much noise that's not necessary for us in the fulfillment of us as individuals, in order to individuate ourselves and live our best lives and offer our highest gifts and offer what we have to be contributors of creating a better, more a more pleasant and happy society for us and our future generations. And there's just there's just so much. We're just exposed to too much. But what I find is that when you get away from that kind of stuff and you start meeting with people in real life, live, feeling the presence of other human beings and the energy that they're emitting from their physical meat suit bodies, that there is something just so undeniably exuberant about that, to be in real life with other people, to hear what other people think, feel, and say, and to truly listen and to ask questions with empathy and compassion out of a place of curiosity and not out of a place of spouting an agenda or, lecturing or giving advice. And it's just, we haven't been trained in those techniques. People have to kind of find them on their own. But this is what's leading to the breakdown of our civilization into just this sort of hegemonic, corporatized blandified authoritarian system that, New York fucking City, the city that I used to call my home, has gone full on tyrannical authoritarian with introducing these vaccine passports. And, it's hard to explain why this is not good when other people out there, maybe some of you listening right now, have an understanding of like, well, this is good. I mean, if you travel to other countries, you're required to get vaccines, or when you're born, you get vaccines, or, like businesses have the right to say and do, and, cities make rules and it's for the greater good and all this kind of thing. And I would just say that's been an issue all along. The pandemic, the vaccine passports, like these kind of things, it's not anything new. It's just a new flavor of the same node, which is we know what's best for you. We're the experts and we're going to tell you what we're going to allow you to do. And essentially what they're doing is they're creating a segregated apartheid state. And I don't think that that's good. I think it's good to encourage people and lead by example. Maybe like how Obama was doing at his birthday party, where everybody was dancing and celebrating, no masks and no, whatever. But who cares, right? Because fine, do it. But don't tell us, that we have to do something different. It's like, give people the freedom to choose what they feel is the best thing for themselves. And 9 times out of 10, people are going to make the decisions that they feel is best. But as soon as you start, we understand this stuff when it comes to children, right? Like the worst way to lead, like to be a leader amongst kids, to raise kids or to be a parent, from my understanding is like, and my experience is not to just yell at them and bark orders at them and say, this is the way it is because we say so. And, it's, you have no say in this. And, we're going to tell you to do these things, hey, don't hit your sister. And then the husband turns and hits his wife. And it's like, well, and then yells like, I said no hitting. It's like, well, you're not really leading by example. You're not really the exemplars of a wise ruling class. If we're going to have a ruling class, we should have a wise one. We should have people that exemplify, that lead by example and exemplify and embody wisdom and encourage and foster and facilitate what they think are fruitful ways for human beings to flourish. So I don't think you do that with mandates. I don't think you do that through threats. I don't think you do that backed by force and coercion. I think usually what happens when you try and force and coerce people into doing things is you're going to get people that are going to go extremely the opposite way. And then it becomes an issue. And they knew this shit. They have think tanks and teams that study this stuff. Hey, if we put a vaccine thing out there, like how many people you think are going to do it? And then what's the, how many people are going to say no? And, what do we do if they say no? And then blah, 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 and this thing and that. And one of the things that they're doing a great job of is making the people who are unvaxxed these like dirty, diseased enemies of humanity. And Charles Eisenstein wrote a great essay on this called Mob Morality and the Unvaxxed, where he talks about Rene Girard's theory that we want what everybody else wants, and we mimic and imitate it. And that's sort of like, it's constantly like, we're constantly creating each other's desires, and also the desires that we manifest into the world through our creations are creating us back. I forget who said it, maybe Arthur C. Clarke, is like, we invent the tools and then the tools invent us. And it's this constant, like every second of the day, it's being invented. And you learn to want what other people want. So then there's fundamentally there's this fundamental conflict that is then baked into our desires. And then it raises competition, and conflict arises because we're trying to get stuff, that we're trying to achieve things that other people have, and we want that. So we're going after that. And so there's this innate pressure that forms. And we learn also the conflict by watching it. So we learn how to resolve conflicts and how to engage in conflicts through watching the sort of more dominant conflicts that play out, right? It's like, oh, these people protesting, or they did this or that. Oh, okay, that's how you conflict. That's the conflict. That's how you do it. You do that. And so that's why we're either, people choose sides, and they're like, all right, well, I'm on that side because that side is the good guys, or that side, But eventually what Eisenstein's talking about, this is Rene Girard's theory that he's talking about of his mimetic desire scapegoat theory. And eventually the conflict energy just builds up so much, there's so much pressure that it builds, and then it needs to get out. So he talks about how that there's this innate sacrificial element that we use, and we scapegoat people as a mechanism to minimize the amount of violence that plays out. So it's let's blame somebody, let's sacrifice somebody, let's have a scapegoat, so that we can just say we've done something, we've accomplished something, we took action in some way, and that makes us feel good, that makes us feel better, right? Bombing the fucking Middle East after 9/11 and invading and occupying countries for decades. It's well, we're doing something. Hey, the war on terror. Hey, there's no more war on terror. I guess we did something. Yeah, we had mission accomplished, man. Mission accomplished, right? It's we live in this false world where it's we just the TSA thing. It's oh yeah, after 9/11, people had to put in these scanners, and you had to get pat down. And there's this great comedian who has a joke, I forget who it is, but he's yeah, they'll take away any liquid that's more than 3 ounces, in case it's a bomb. So they just put it in the garbage right next to them in case it's a bomb, so it's all this illusion of safety, illusion of security, illusion of progress, illusion of accomplishment. So it calms down the energy of the conflict. It calms down that conflict energy, and we're able to breathe a sigh of relief. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh my God, there's a vaccine. Finally, this thing is going to be over. Oh my God, there's a vaccine. Thank God there's a vaccine. There's a solution. There's a thing that we can address as being this is the solution. Finally, we can get back to normal life. Finally, we can travel. Oh my God, we can go to concerts. It's just things are going to go back to the easily understandable, comfortable, and familiar world that we once knew. Thank God I want to get back to that, because this big, scary, unknown world was too destabilizing for me, and I couldn't make sense of it. So just give me something, whatever it is. Oh, that makes sense to me. Yeah, vaccine, science, all the experts, and they say it's yeah, you get a vaccine, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure, of course, yeah, and just take it and get it over with. I'm not gonna think about it. It's just get me back to normal. Get me back to the comfortable and familiar world that I'm used to, even if it's a world of illusions. People would rather be existing in a comfortable world of fantasy and illusions rather than addressing the difficult, nuanced, infinitely complex, and diverse, disparate topics that are contradictory and paradoxical. It's too much. It's too much for me. So the scapegoat, it's always a made up artificial thing. It's our own. It's harder to look at our own issues, our own desires, our own wants, and say, where are these really coming from? Not so hard if you engage in deeply profound psychedelic work on a serious level, with the proper set and setting and integration to help you with it. But to really go in and really understand yourself, where does your suffering come from? Like desired outcomes. How many people have expectations about like how things should be, or like how I want things to be? I'm going to manifest things the way that I want them to be. And everything is just a creation of our own manifestation. And like, yeah, there's like some truth to that, but that's not the whole thing. It's like we constantly look for these things that will easily explain how we should function in the world and what we can believe in. So, and then we just grab onto them and say, well, this is the way I create my own reality and I just manifest whatever I want and everything's just going to be fine. And, just like all I have to do is just think positive thoughts. Nothing negative will ever happen. It's like, okay, like you're missing a lot of nuance there. So the article is fantastic. I'll link it in the descriptions. Charles wrote an amazing series of articles. One of them is called The Death of the Festival, where my main takeaway with that is basically we have no more true anarchic festivals that are truly spontaneous and anarchic in the sense of anarchy. No rules, regulations, laws, borders, boundaries, just spontaneous, curious collaboration and letting go of societal norms and things like that. Where what we have is allowable, compartmentalized sections of reality that it's like, okay, you can go to this little music festival for 3 days and you can have a temporary, controlled, liberated experience, but then back into the dominant general consensus agenda setting reality, the sacred timeline. Will allow you, it would be like in that show Loki, if they allowed variants to have a little playpen for their little, to get out their little variant, desires. It's like, oh, here is the sanctioned and approved little sandbox that you can play in for now, for a limited amount of time. And there's still, rules and regulations and borders and boundaries in place. There's ticket sales and there's people that'll check if you have, substances and, there's sort of like things that are, but what Eisenstein makes it so, and that even happens with like our protests. Protests aren't even this like spontaneous anarchical thing. It's like controlled and allowable. They're like, well, you're allowed to protest if it's peaceful. It's like, well, that defeats the whole fucking purpose. A protest should be like, we're not fucking going anywhere until we get what we want. And we're willing to do whatever it takes to do that. It's not this allowable playpen of approved expression. Oh, you go over here and you're allowed to march, but you can't say F the police. You have to say we want justice or something. And will allow you to express yourself and your dissent and your discontent in this allowable way. So there's no real, true, spirited, liberated, anarchic, spontaneous explosion of a festival, of wild festivities. Alan Watts talks about this in one of the greatest videos on YouTube. Why is our culture so sick? And he goes into talking about, you would think that a culture so abundant and wise and intelligent as us would have grand feasts and banquets and people partying into all hours of the night and cheersing in the streets and orgies and this and that. But no, people come home and they go inside of a box and they stare at a box and they watch representations of that on a screen mediated by an artificial fake plastic tree representation. Here's your consolation prize. Here's your plastic plant. Here's your fake plastic. I always say fake plastic trees because that's in a Radiohead song. And it's like, you don't get to have the feeling that the Coca-Cola commercial is telling you that you're going to have by buying that product, but they want you to believe it. And the same thing is true with government and with government. The same thing is true. The government tells you, look, we got a pretty good thing going on here. If everybody just kind of plays by the rules and comes together, we can have a pretty good thing going, and it's like, well, aren't you guys just like fucking, doing like some of the most corrupt, crazy shit in the world? But, oh, okay, I guess we'll listen to you on this one occasion. Yeah, didn't you guys experiment with like poisonous like bioterror weapons in Korea and then covered it up by, with like an LSD program and in the CIA and Operation Mockingbird and Paperclip and Northwoods and like all these things. No, yeah, that's fine. That's all in the past. Don't worry about that. Oh, COINTELPRO? Yeah, that's something in the past. We don't do that anymore. That's fine. Yeah, we've changed. It's like this thing is like a crazy monster behemoth that is so out of control and nobody can get a handle on it because it's so crazy out of control. So what we do is we engage in the scapegoat stuff. We engage in the artificial scapegoat sacrifices to make us feel better about our reality. And the Death of the Festival article that Charles writes about, it's, not having that baked into a society, not having an allowable and a laudable time period for no allowable and a laudable expressions. Like having a time period is just like, hey, this is the time period where fucking anything goes. People might get hurt, crazy shit might happen, some stuff might get damaged, but you know what? If we have that sort of free, total expression of hedonistic anarchy and spontaneous desire, that then it won't spill out into sort of ordinary life where you have to, kind of like do things in a more ordinary way. That will have this kind of like, if you want to say, purge period, right? So it's like a purge, but for an extended period of time, and in the flavor of a festive party, festival, a real, banquet of celebration of life. And I think that's one of the things that we are deeply, deeply missing in our society, in our civilization these days, is this total liberated experience where no one can tell you what you can say, what you can do, how you can express yourself. No one's going to tell you to turn the music down. It's like, hey, fuck you. This is the festival, baby. Get with it. It's festival time. And I mean, you probably want to be a little bit more respectful from that, but it's a severe issue. And we live in a really interesting and a very interesting time because the models of propaganda and persuasion and indoctrination and conditioning and the pruning of variants to preserve the sacred timeline, it's masterful. The way it's done is so masterful that everything is glossed over with this glitter, with this shine, with this sheen, with this like, wow, isn't it like amazing? Look at all these like wonderful innovations and wonderful things and like, oh man, like technology and progress and billionaires shooting dick rockets into space. Wow, it's like amazing, right? Yeah, I guess, but like there's a lot of other things that are just so, it's like this Henry David Thoreau line, most people suffer from quiet desperation. There's this quiet like crud that is the core. It's this like rot at the core that keeps blipping out and infecting. But the power elites, the agenda setters of our society are so good at being the janitors of it, like knowing how to use it to the advantage. Never let a good crisis go to waste, right? As Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. That is their ethos. That is their what they live by. That's the modus operandi of the establishment. Never, ever, ever let a crisis go to waste, ever. Because there's so much to be gained. There's so much to be spun, to be there's so much to take advantage of from that. Anyway, I have been having a really hard time like understanding and making sense of a way out of this. What do we do? Because there's one, part where it's like, well, you can't really worry about all that stuff because then you lose agency over yourself and your life. And, these big complex things, you're never going to change. So you might as well focus on your own life. And there's truth to that, right? But what I see is a lot of people focusing on their own life, focusing on themselves, focusing on the individual, and then getting people who are like them to congregate and commune together to create experiences, whether it's retreats or whether it's like, different modalities of people getting together. And then you get this sort of like trendy, cool, kind of like its own sort of elite, prestigious, exclusive class of people that wear big hats and, cool clothes and jewelry and get together and they say that we're liberating ourselves, we're exploring our consciousness, we're coming together, we're experiencing emotions in like raw way. And it's like all that's true, but we've also left behind any sort of like umbilical cord to the greater mother, the Gaia, the Gaian mind, the noosphere of collective consciousness of all the beings, the ones that don't have access to that need it the most. How do we reach them? How do we get them involved? How do we get them to say, hey, we'd like to invite you here? So I don't know, maybe people have to find it on their own or what, but what I see a lot of like the going in, focusing on your own thing, like worrying about yourself, build a little lifeboat, build a little intentional community. That's all well and good, but it only attracts a certain kind of people. And then you tend to, what I've noticed is most people tend to insulate and isolate, and it becomes this exclusive, expensive thing only catered to a certain class of people. So how do we invite all into that? And how do we bake in things that are reciprocal and give back and pay it forward and invest in, so I don't know. I'm gonna start thinking about that more and more because the way that I see things going is not so good. It doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. I'm not interested in breaking off and creating my own little party over here while everything else burns. I'm not interested in like playing violin on the Titanic. Like that's not what I'm interested in doing. Or whatever. Like that's not even a good metaphor. It'd be like, hey, the Titanic's going down. Well, all right, let's go get a bunch of people together and just have our own like little like party. It's like, no, how can we fucking help as many people as possible in this situation? And I don't think like it's not a fun party if everybody at the party is suffering and in misery and there's like death and destruction and bombs and poison and toxin and fear and propaganda and indoctrination and tragedy happening, and then there's like three people that are having fun in the corner over there, and then two people that are having fun in the corner over there, and like one person fucking jerking off in the bathroom, and everybody's just, and they're just like, well, hey, I'm having a good time, I'm just worried about me and my life and my things, and I can't control everything. So it's like, no, that's not a fun party. I want life to be a fun party. I want us to do better. I believe that we can do better. And I have faith that we can do better. And I think that it starts maybe with some inspirational fucking messaging like this. Like, it's like, look, neurodiversity and cognitive liberty are like the most important things. Sovereignty and autonomy, respect and compassion and curiosity, being a real, decent and engaged and present actual human being, and unplugging from the desires of the agenda setters and the manipulators and the programmers and the propagandizers from everywhere, whether they're an Instagram influencer or they're fucking, some government official or whatever the fuck. Start getting in touch with what you think, with what you feel, with what you believe. Go back and read, amazing books that have stood the test of time, that espouse great wisdom. Get with groups, go out and be together with people and engage in somatic, embodied experiences of feeling what it truly feels like to be a fully live human being in a three-dimensional meat suit world. Go and have those experiences. Have wild sex and orgies and have just make the most out of the sensory experience that you have, and figure out ways that you can unleash your gifts and contribute the most to the world, and how you can have an impact in helping yourself, and by helping yourself, then helping others. That's the whole point, is what I'm trying to say, is like, yes, help yourself, go within, do those things, but don't forget where you came from. Don't forget where you were, and give back and look for ways to improve the greater lot of things. And I don't know, maybe not everybody's up for that, but I think that, we have to come to terms with the fact that we are being ruled over by psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, in every domain. Everywhere we look, there's somebody that's trying to take advantage and expose vulnerabilities and weaknesses to their best advantages, so they can make more money, so they can have more fame, so they can profit more, so they can get more women, so they can get more men, so they can, whatever it is, so they can enrich themselves more by taking something from us all. And then at the highest level, the power elite model is pitting people against each other, divide and conquer, so that they can run away with all the money, so they can run away with all the power and the prestige, so they can be the quote unquote saviors of humanity for the greater good, so they can live in an Ozymandias type of fantasy delusion of like a Ozymandias syndrome of like living on and having your name last throughout history. And these are the people, these people are sick, they're hoarders, they're mentally ill, they're insane, and therefore we have a very insane society. Don't agree. Just say no. Say no to the things that violate your rights as an individual, where people are going to try and tell you what you can and what you cannot put in your body. What people are telling you, that they know what's best for you and your body, and that you don't. And that people are telling you they know what's best for you and your mind. Cognitive liberty goes both ways. It means the right that nobody has the right to tell you that no one has the right to tell you that you can't smoke a plant, that you can't ingest something that's going to alter your state of consciousness, because the truth of the matter is that they don't. They that I'm referring to is the people that function on the incentive systems that preserve the sacred timeline, the status quo, the agenda setters. Their incentive system does not get rewarded when you start diverging from it, when you start thinking differently and questioning things, and we start to have a diversity, an infinite diversity of nuanced and complex and unique artistic and poetic ideas. That's when the established status quo sacred timeline will dissolve, because it will be obsolete, because people will recognize, holy shit, there's so many other genres, there's so many other flavors. Why the fuck would I default to these fucking people? What, because they wear suits and ties and occupy grand buildings and have this air of superiority while we deem them to be experts? Nobody is an expert. Nobody knows what they're doing. And we all have choice. So I would rather choose freedom and liberty and neurodiversity and cognitive liberty, sovereignty and autonomy, bodily autonomy, to say, you're not going to tell me that I can't smoke a plant, and you're also not going to tell me that I have to inject something into my body. That's just not the way that we're going to live. That's not the way that I'm going to live. And that's the hill that I'm willing to die on, because I believe it's the most important. Thanks for listening to this episode. I appreciate it very much. And more to come. Some great guests coming up soon. Going to have Ramin Nazar back on the show. Going to have James McCrae, Words Are Vibrations, on the show. And really excited about that, as well as some other people. I think Mitch Schultz will be coming up. Jessa Reed should be coming back, I think. And I'll just tell her. I'll tell her she has to now, because I put it on the podcast. But yeah, check out this podcast on the Timewheel Podcast Network that we're now a part of. Let me know what you guys think of the new logo, the new design. I'm really happy about it. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are of this episode. If you have thoughts and opinions that are different than mine, I want to hear them. I'd love to engage in some healthy debate and dialectic discourse over what do you think? So one of the best ways to do that is become a Patreon member. Go to patreon.com/MikeBrank and become a Patreon member. There's bonus episodes, early release episodes, and the Inner Sanctum Discord server where we get to talk about things like this. But shoot me an email, follow me on Instagram. All the links, everything that you need will be in the show description, show notes area. And what can I say? I love you all for allowing me the freedom and the time and the space to express myself in a way that I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a lot of things wrong. Maybe I'm off. Maybe, a lot of things I say aren't accurate or don't hold up in this certain context or situation. Let me know about it. Let's chat. Let's talk. I'm open. And would love to hear that from you. If there's anything that I want to encourage about these shows is to create an open and honest and respectful discourse with myself and all of you that listen. So like I said, best way to do that, become a Patreon member and get into the Discord chat. And that'll be really, really fun. Also, feel free to privately message me. Check out all the sponsors in the show notes, show description. Being True to You, which, hey, can't be there's not a better name than that. Being True to You. Be True to You. BeingTrue.com, BeingTrueToYou.com, Sheath Underwear, Fungi Academy, and Ohana Kava Bar, and Mushroom Revival. And big shout out to Student Loan Tutor, of course, Danny Barnett and Galaxia for the music. Thank you so much. And I'll see you guys later. Much love. Really appreciate you all. Peace.